Hello, this is Susie Walker here for our monthly teleclass webinar. We talk to amazing self-development experts once a month, and we chat to them and we try and learn how to improve our lives, live a simple life, become happier, become more creative. And I'm so delighted to be joined by Eve today. So Eve I've known for probably over maybe 10 years, Eve.
Ish, yes.
Yeah, 10 years. So Eve is a journalist, but she's also a trauma therapist, self-care coach, accredited counsellor and supervisor, a BACP senior supervisor and coach, as well as written this most amazing book, which is what we featured in Psychologies, and That's How I Know You, which was 365 Ways to Feel Better Every Day. And it's one of the most practical, brilliant books that because I think it's inspiring, because it's sometimes really difficult to kind of find ways to make ourselves feel better on a daily basis. So my first question to you, Eve, so let's just I'll be asking you some questions, but I will want to go to all of you at the end with lots of other questions. But my first question to you, Eve, is what is self-care? Define self-care.
Okay, so for me, as well as your basic self-care, brushing your teeth, flossing, eating well, getting enough sleep, moving, all of that, I work with the uppercase self, and the kind of counselling I do is psychosynthesis. It's a transpersonal psychology, very much influenced by Eastern philosophy, and you're working with what I call that highest, wisest, truest, wildest, most joyful, brilliant, and miraculous part of yourself. So for me, self-care is like, when do you feel most connected? So like before you started recording, we were talking about some of the issues facing the world. And when we think as individuals, when we think as just, in my case, a sobbing wreck, when something affects me too deeply, when my self-care isn't amped up enough to manage life. Whereas when we remember that we're all connected, we're all part of something bigger, we can connect with more resourcefulness, more heart, we can be present, we're not denying anything. But also when it comes to anything, it's just that more resourceful, more getting out of our own way, basically.
Tell me a little bit about what it feels like. I don't know, I'm sure many of us on this call will know what it feels like to be connected to, as you, that kind of most resourceful self. But let's just sort of start there of what does it feel like? Because I remember when we interviewed you for the for Metro, I didn't really understand about what embodied meant. So talk to me about what it feels like. So what the kind of going back to being embodied happiness, isn't it? That kind of connected. You describe it to me. What does it feel like?
And it's a safety as well. When we're in pain, like there's research around mindfulness being more beneficial than opioids in terms of pain relief for a lot of chronic pain conditions. But when we're in physical pain or emotional pain or mental pain or spiritual pain, we want to escape. We want to be anywhere but in our bodies. And like you think about in our society, where in school very young, we're kind of forced to sit still, to not go to the loo when we'd normally go, all these different things. We learn at an early age to deny our basic, like if you watch animals, they're more natural, and we can learn a lot by connecting that with that wilder part of ourselves, by not holding ourselves back. But for me, embodiment is just that inherent wisdom we all have access to, but which we don't like when it's not convenient. So I'm laughing now thinking my knees have been really sore, and I realize it's because I've been on my knees with these little kittens for so long the past few days. And earlier when I was walking and I was a bit grouchy because I couldn't do my normal 5 kilometers, it was 2 kilometers, and that was painful. And I was thinking, well, what would you be telling a client? You need to sit with it. You need to meditate. You need to ask your knees, how are they trying to help you? You need to, and it's like, and I'm hearing need. There might be something in that, but there's that part of me. I don't want to. I just want it to stop hurting. This is just a slight ache. For a lot of pain, it's much, much harder, and it's about gentleness. I'm aware I think it might be tomorrow's or maybe today's newsletter or blog where I'm talking about Dan Siegel's window of tolerance, where if you open a window too high immediately, so whether that's exploring reluctance to become embodied, if there's any kind of resistance there, so with trauma recovery, for example, it can be a really scary, terrifying place to be in your body. But if you try to heal too quickly, I'm going to do all the things, I'm going to open that window, and then it crashes down and breaks, you're never going to go there again. Whereas gently, 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 you can increase that window of tolerance. So if you're struggling with feeling safe and happy and well and peaceful in your body, it's about noticing the times where you feel least unsafe or least unhappy. You're not going to go from hating being present with your body to ta-da, like joy. My first resourceful place when I started doing this work like 20 plus years ago was imagining myself floating face down in the ocean, like far away from people. It just felt like, and then gradually it was like closer to the shore, and I've added loads and loads more resources. But some people will have an imaginary resource. Others, it might be a memory from earlier today, like, yeah, I had my dog on my lap and that was amazing and I was completely present and happy and well. So I'm aware I may have gone off track.
No. So I think the whole idea of being safe in our bodies, I don't think we talk about this enough. You know, it's about, self-soothing. Often,
yes,
for many, many years,
yeah.
I've used alcohol, busyness, every other thing to kind of almost not be in my body, to try
Exactly.
and escape. So anytime I felt some strong emotion, I would kind of think, oh, I'm not going to feel this and I'm going to run away from it. Cigarettes, I smoked in my 20s.
Yeah.
Anything rather than feel. So I think this kind of very basic stuff about how do we start feeling comfortable, and how do you do that? So I've learned, put my electric blanket on at night and then
Brilliant.
cuddle my dog, warm baths, a lot to do with temperature for me. It's like, how can I self-soothe without using alcohol, without using cigarettes, without overeating chocolate, whatever? How can we do that? So how do we start, first of all, being, because I think it's that kind of sabotage that we do, isn't it, around self-care? We sabotage ourselves because we think, we start feeling an emotion and then we run away from it. So we start feeling, oh my God. I mean, what you were talking about in the interview that we did for Metro was this sense of, talking to yourself of like, what is, as you say, about your knees, talking to your knees, talking to your ovaries, talking and say, what is really going on here? And I don't think I've ever learned how to do that. I didn't even know that was a thing. So how do we start to do, tell us the process about starting to, what do you need, what do you want, rather than using all these alcohol, drugs, whatever it is that you use?
So first of all, confession, I ate a giant bag of the giant vegan Wotsits last night because I did not want to feel. It'd been a very stressful week. But do you all have a journal? Do you have a pen and paper?
Everybody? Yeah.
Okay.
If you haven't got one, grab one. Yeah.
If you, it's probably easier to demonstrate than to explain. So if you can all think of something that is painful, some sort of problem in your life. It might be a physical ache, or it might be something mental or emotional or spiritual, but something that is an issue. And if you were to ask yourself, how is this trying to help me? So if it's a physical thing, like how is your knee equivalent trying to help you? What is it trying to help you understand? Our bodies can't talk to us using words, like whatever it might be, but the ache, the pain, everything is ultimately trying to help us. With psychosynthesis, you're using what they call bifocal vision. So whatever the presenting issue you come with, it might be the relationship issue or whatever, or the boundary issue, it might be an illness, but what's trying to emerge at a soul level. So if you're to write down the problem, but also to be curious about the problem and just for a few moments sit with the problem and imagine that it is somehow, not in a toxic positivity way, but in a, how is it trying to teach you? What is it trying to guide you towards? So does anyone have any questions before you do that for a minute or two?
No.
Okay. Okay, has everyone got something?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to encourage you to go deeper with this after the call or whenever it suits you. Really get yourself cozy, get yourself, like, treat yourself like you would a beloved toddler. Make yourself, like what Susie's saying about the electric blanket, absolutely love that. Like, really allow yourself to explore it from a position of safety and comfort. And now, having said that, I'm going to ask for a volunteer. Would anyone be willing to share, happy to share what they came up with? Thank you, Fiona.
I'm carrying about, I'm overweight and I procrastinate and self-sabotage all the time in just releasing this that I'm carrying. And I was sitting there thinking, be curious about I know all the theory, I know what I should be doing, but I'm just not doing it. And everything gets in the way of it. And then I emotionally eat.
Mm-hmm. And it might sound counterintuitive. I put on a stone in under a year. I found out last time I went to the doctor, and it's like, yikes. And I'm aware when I talk about my knees, I know that excess weight is not helping my knees.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I was nearly anorexic as a teenager. So I'm very, very resistant to the idea of dieting and the whole patriarchy saying that women need to be less than. So it's that kind of working with the self-care without it being a tool to oppress yourself. So right. Trusting your body. Like, I know for me, I overeat when I'm working too late, when I'm driving myself too hard in other areas. And it's like, then that part of me that needs rest will be like, well, fine, I'll have biscuits for dinner or whatever it might be. So for you, asking yourself, how is that part of you that is eating more than you would like to be eating trying to help you? Like, how is it trying to get your attention? What potentially might the excess weight be trying to protect you from? How is it serving you in some way? And these are all questions that sound absurd, but there's always a positive intention behind. Like Susie mentioned smoking. I quit smoking in 2001 before I quit alcohol. The cigarettes, they gave me time away from my desk, or they gave me time outside to just think, and like it was almost meditative. And like then later when I trained as a yoga therapist, and the longer, deeper, calming breath, well, I kind of got that from smoking, but obviously with all the bad chemicals. The unhealthiest of habits have those positive intentions. You are already whole, you are already complete, you have it within you. It's just listening, and with as much compassion as grace as you can muster for yourself. Okay. Which of course is easier for other people than for ourselves.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So be curious.
Yeah, but most of all, be compassionate. You're not interrogating yourself like a detective trying to beat it out of you. You're being gentle, like you've got a toddler that's crying and needing help, and you're just trying to figure out, is it hungry? Is it like thirsty? Blah, blah, blah. I'm not a parent. I don't know. But love, compassion, and curiosity.
So I love that question that you just said, that it's like, what, so for example, what is this weight protecting me from? That's a great question. You know, we don't need you to answer that in a live call, Fiona, but it's those really big questions, isn't it? To really, rather than see it, if we are trying, if everything that's happening in our bodies is trying to help us in some way, in a little misguided way, it's like curious to what that might be.
Everything happening in our lives, but our bodies are what carry us through life. So it might be that the issue that you wrote down wasn't a physical issue, but it might be, say, you're worried about your finances or you're worried about your relationship. You can, as you ponder that worry or that problem, notice, where do you feel that in your body? What are you aware of? A tightness, a heaviness, a ache, a tingling, whatever it might be, and then working with the body that way, but knowing that you're safe, knowing that all is well, and it's just coming up for healing.
Can we talk about self-sabotage? Think, Fiona's just been talking around, I really resonated with what you said, Fiona. It's like, what we should be doing. We know the rules. We know, okay, it's it's actually easy to lose weight, isn't it? It's like, oh yeah, you just eat, you exercise more, and you do this and this. There's millions of things you could do, but then we don't follow the plan. We don't do it. So why, when we find ourselves sabotaging ourselves, when we know that the self-care should be a bath and a yoga class, except you find yourself eating a big block of chocolate or smoking or drinking or whatever your go-to thing, what do we do? How do we stop going towards the things that don't serve us and start going towards the things that do?
Again, recognizing that there's a need, there's a stress, it's a stress response that's sending us towards the unhealthy habit, whatever that might be. And this is a wonderful time of year with Samhain tomorrow and with the lunar eclipse and full moon a couple of days ago, to release those bad habits or those unhealthy beliefs and behaviors. I can't remember the question, sorry. You said about self-sabotage.
Yeah, we're going back. It says how do we stop self-sabotaging? And what you said there is about habit. And I think what happens, well, certainly for me, and I'm sure many people on this call, is that we have just our old self-sabotage habits. It may be chocolate, it may be a glass of wine, it may be a gin and tonic, it may be it may be something that we just pick up and we know will make us feel better in the moment, but long term it's not going towards us feeling. Our self-care in the moment is this chocolate feel better, but long term it's not. So how do we stop our habits? How do we change our habits in the moment? So yes, self-awareness first of all. Secondly, starting to have a dialogue with ourselves about what is protecting us from but still, so you get that self-awareness. At that point where you think, oh, excuse my language, fuck it, I just want a glass of wine, I just want a piece of chocolate or whatever it is. Have you got any good advice for us at the fuck it moment?
So when you were talking about, like, we all know, for example, with the weight thing, we also have busy lives. If you think about a Hollywood actor who gets a role and drops however many kilos to play whatever part, they have nutritionists, they have doctors, they have their livelihood all depending on them getting as fit and healthy, or in some roles like unhealthily thin or unhealthily fat, but essentially they're being coached and trained and everything in their environment is supporting them. They have it. in our lives, we might really want something, but we might be too busy with all the other things. So by the time it comes to making that healthier choice, not reaching for the cigarette, not reaching for the whatever food it might be or alcohol, it's like you're already depleted from all the things you forced yourself to do earlier in the day. So it's not just looking at it in the moment, but thinking about your day overall or your week overall. We're more likely to make healthier choices when we're not running on empty. So and again, I've reconfigured my working weeks to try and stop myself running on empty on a every week kind of basis, because I always delude myself that I can get more done than one person can get done. But when you are actually treating yourself with love and respect and not being punitive in terms of all the things you're trying to fit in, you have the time and energy to go for that longer walk or that gym class or to make that nutritious meal or whatever it might be. But I think too often we expect ourselves to be all the things for all the people in our lives at work, and then also to somehow magically have the energy to be preparing amazingly nutritious meals and getting amazing amounts of sleep and all the rest of it. But in terms of something we can do in the moment, I'm a little embarrassed to share this. But it's really effective. Yeah. So I learned it at an energy conference years and years ago. So there was a lot around like EFT tapping, one of the things I do. This is much quicker than tapping. So there's the triple warmer, which I'll show you in a minute, but it's for that. You want that cigarette, you can't have that cigarette, or you want that wine. You want to recognize that you feel shitty about something and you want to feel better. So you think about whatever it is and you stamp your feet like a toddler and you move your hands and you yell, go away, go away, go away. And it feels ridiculous, but it's amazing because you're getting in your body, you're grounding yourself, you're burning off excess stress hormones, you're empathizing with yourself because you're recognizing that whatever the feeling is that you would normally self-medicate, you are letting yourself feel. Sometimes, like just now, I just kind of immediately laughed. Sometimes you might wind yourself because you're actually really frustrated with whatever the issue is. I remember one time I was working with a really demanding client who was ringing me at like midnight, and I loved what they stood for, but they're an absolute nightmare to be working with. And I ended up like almost for like 15 minutes, like stomping, go away, go away, go away. And it's like I stopped working with that client. It was back when I did copywriting years and years ago. But there's wisdom in your body, like it might be an immediate release, or it might be, but you're empowering yourself and you're also keeping yourself busy. And then you can choose, do I still want that giant packet of Wotsits, or do I still want that glass of wine or that cigarette? If you do, again, you don't want to be setting off another stress response by beating yourself up about it. It's like, okay, I'm going to have this glass of wine or this cigarette or this whatever it might be with such deliciousness. I'm going to enjoy every puff or every mouthful, and I'm going to have it as a treat rather than a self-loathing-y, oh, what's wrong with me, I shouldn't be doing this.
Okay, there's two things about that, so thank you. I think so this idea of feeling your feelings.
Yep.
So many of the things that we're reaching for are just feeling our feelings. You know, we just had a lousy day, or we're feeling anxious or fearful, and we can't perhaps articulate that.
Yeah.
Want that? Well, it's certainly so much of what I do is about avoiding negative feeling. So what that tool that you've just shared with us is about actually allowing yourself to feel, you know, you say, like having a kind of a control
tantrum. Toddlers get it out their systems. Toddlers will cry, they will drop, they will tantrum, they will scream, they will shout, and then they'll laugh, they'll gurgle, they'll like play. But the older we get, the more conditioned we get to hold it all within ourselves. So
So I think, so my question to you around that is, I think for many of us, the kind of avoiding of big feelings that perhaps we don't want to feel.
Yeah.
How can we start to explore those in a safe, because it's safe
Yeah.
environment? For many of us, I think perhaps I don't know whether this is true or not, but let's just explore this as an idea, that many of us perhaps have had trauma when we were younger of some description.
Yeah.
Not big trauma, it can be little trauma. And so we learn to disassociate. We learn to do anything rather than feel our feelings. So often I think that's the root of sabotaging self-care. I mean, I don't know whether that's true, but that it feels true to me. I'm going to avoid my feelings. So how can we start exploring those more negative feelings, but in a safe way? I mean, yes, obviously hire a therapist, which is always good.
And that can feel like, for me personally, I had to start processing my trauma long before I was ready for therapy. And when I was ready for therapy, I wasn't ready to trust a therapist. It was like, right, okay, I've done the coaching, I've done the EFT, I've done the NLP, I've done the crystals, I've done everything else. I'm going to train as a therapist. And I realized that as part of that, I'll have to have therapy. But I still had so little trust with people. Not everyone is ready for therapy. Not everyone feels safe with therapy. So it's reparenting ourselves. If you think about it, we were all conditioned. Like, you hear someone talking about a baby, like, oh yeah, they're really good, they don't cry. That baby has learned already that it's praised for not crying, for keeping its feelings within, or being rewarded with food, or shut up with food or treats. So often it's just easier for the parent to do that, because like, parenting is hard. But it's us then recognizing, I am ready in my own time and my own pace to excavate what is behind all this, and I'm going to do it really gently, and I am in control of the pace, and I am safe. I have survived. It's 2023. Whatever happened, whether I'm conscious of it or whether I've got terrified feelings of what lurks behind what I'm conscious of, or whether I know and I don't want to go, I don't have to go there. I can work with what is, and I can still heal. I don't have to cathartic. I don't have to re-traumatize myself. So it's really like, I'm thinking, I'm so sorry, I'm obsessed with these feral kittens I'm looking after. So it's my job to get them ready for their forever homes by now scooping them out from the back of the crate we've got them in and stroking them. And today I introduced the brush, and it's doing it very gently, singing to them, which I hope is soothing rather than re-traumatizing for them, and then putting them back. One of them today was purring, so I held him for much longer. Another, it was very quick, and it's trying to gauge, like you would with a child or anything you're caring for, what is okay here. But it's really hard when it's for ourselves. So you're doing that for yourself. You're imagining yourself as a terrified creature, that part of you that is acting out in whatever way, and making her safe.
And how, so give us off the top of your head 5 of your favorite tools. So, because I think, again, we haven't, you talk about reparenting, as many of us have not a clue. We've just used alcohol, drugs, television.
Cry. Let yourself cry.
Okay.
Let yourself sob. Let yourself wail. Let yourself be incapacitated by it. Not in a wallowy way, not in an indulging way, but in a feeling it way. And it is transformational. Let yourself go back to bed. Let yourself pull the duvet over you. It won't be forever. Like, we think, if I stop functioning, if I stop doing, then I'll have a nervous breakdown and never be okay again. It's rarely the case. It might be an hour, it might be half an hour, it might be an afternoon, but let yourself be. Like, just stop fighting whatever it is you're feeling. Ask yourself in any given moment, what would help me right now? Like, it might be something you can do for yourself right now, or it might be something that feels really outlandish. You might be in a meeting or something, can't possibly do it then, but you can make a promise to that younger part of yourself that that evening or the next day and keep that promise. But it's checking in. Like when we talk about reparenting and the inner child, and it all sounds really quite clinical, but it is so powerful, because with the best intentions in the world, our parents couldn't possibly be 100% good enough for us. There would have always been times that they missed. So it's us recognizing that it's not. I talk about, like, kind of, do you remember Smelly Cat in Friends? Like the song? Yeah. And it's like, if you think of a baby covered in snot, covered in vomit, covered in poo, that baby is still utterly divine and deserves being cleaned and soothed and supported and given the curiosity to figure out what's going on for that baby. What does it need? How can we help it? And we often get disgusted with ourselves. We haven't had that care and that connection and that patience when we were very little. Like, I'm struggling with cats. I can't imagine what it's like to parent children, but you can't be as patient as a baby would ideally have. So you can do it for yourself now by just thinking, okay, wiping away the snot, wiping away the poo, giving it a shower, putting it in beautiful, like, kind of cuddly, clean clothes, doing all that for yourself. Like you've talked about the electric blanket. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that complete sense. So it's, I mean, so I think rather than it being complicated,
yes,
it's like, let's look at how we would treat either a puppy or a kitten or a child, and taking care of yourself like that. And what you're saying about, it's interesting what you just said there was like crying and having a duvet day. When you did that exercise with us earlier about what are you feeling, and I'm just feeling really sad at the moment because my son has gone off to university and I'm trying to deal with that. And I think I was thinking to myself, oh, it's sadness, I'm sorry about that. And it feels like I just want to lie down, as you say, under a duvet and just cry my eyes out. And I think if I do that, I'd never get out of bed again. Do you know what I mean? That's what I feel. That's my fear. It's like,
but you will.
Yes, that's right. But it's allowing yourself trusting that you will be okay. To feel these things. So I'm sure that's just something I'm going through. I mean, many of us on this call will be going through really big things, through bereavements, through redundancies, through big transitions, through divorces, all of these things that we're going through. Allowing ourselves to feel it, but often it can feel very unsafe.
And it's about, you're already high functioning, you're already like surviving. Like Brené Brown talks about over functioning and under functioning in times of stress. And it might be, if you recognize, okay, I really need to lie down and cry, or just lie down, or just shut my eyes, maybe put a wet flannel over my face, whatever it might be. Okay, I'm going to set an alarm. I'm going to set an alarm for half an hour or an hour or 2 hours or whatever it might be. But let that part of you that needs your inner control enthusiast, let her feel safe as well. Because otherwise it's like you don't want to lose your resourcefulness or your, like, it's a balance. It's not about, you don't have to do it all in one go. You don't have to, it's little and often.
And I think that's a really great point around creating the idea of, I'm just going to let it all out and then it's going to be a complete meltdown and but it doesn't have to be, like a therapy session is 1 hour or 50 minutes, or you can have a journaling session for half an hour. I love the idea of doing an alarm. So whatever self-care practice that is, it's getting in touch. But then I think part of it, and I know that what I learned through my therapy is that you could have therapy and then you could lose it completely, and then you put yourself back together again, and then you go out in the world again. But you've just let some of the pressure cooker go. And I think that's the same. At the moment, I'm in the middle of the Artist's Way with lots of people. We're doing it together, and with that, we've got the morning pages. The morning pages are consciousness, 3 pages, kind of vomit it on the page and whatever, and get it all out there. And it's just 3 pages, but it kind of, you start off with all of this,
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
And then by the end, it's a bit like, oh, and it's just allowed.
You're listening to yourself.
Yeah.
You're recognizing that part of you is worthy of attention and care.
Yeah. Or just purely it is about acknowledging and hearing it. Rather, I think so much of when we were talking about sabotage and all the things that we do are how we block it. So by using food or alcohol or whatever it is that use busyness, or it's a way of blocking feeling anything, you know, it's like you keep it all up here. And rather than actually, you know, actually beginning to feel it in your heart. Okay, so my next question to you is, so I think that kind of self-sabotage is getting to the root of that, and as you say, reparenting yourself and doing that. So if we were going to create a kind of a self-care or a reparenting routine for ourselves, where do we start? Where do we start with that? Where do we, you know, what does that look like in terms, you know, because I'm fascinated by other people's self-care routines, and but then I get completely overwhelmed because I'm like, they're doing morning pages, they're doing yoga, they're doing this, and I mean, I can hardly do I've on this commitment to do a 30-minute meditation every day, and I keep missing it, and it's like, oh my god, and it's like, and that's just one thing. So
but why are you aiming so high? Why are you trying 30 minutes rather than starting with a minute or 2?
Okay. Because I had a lesson with a meditation teacher, and that's what he said, and he said, just follow this 100 days, do that. So that's why. And you know, I'm learning about that, but so that's one thing I can do. But for everybody on this call, how do we choose the tools? As you say, it's a good point, maybe it's 2 minutes of meditation, but how do we choose what's good for us?
So it's funny, like when you said you were going to be asking me this today, and I'd been this morning because I interviewed Susie for my new podcast, the Feel Better Everyday podcast, where I'm basically talking to people in the self-care personal development world, like neuroscientists, doctors, coaches, therapists, nutritionists, all sorts of people, about their ideal morning routine and then the reality. And I'd kind of put together my ideal this morning because I did my full meditation in bed, holding paws with Rainbow, my cat, and then I did some yoga in bed because I didn't want to wake up the kittens next door and have to resist their adorable little meows. But I meditate each morning. I do a little bit of yoga. I need to get back into a proper practice because my little joints, I'm now menopausal, and I need to. But even 1 or 2 poses, it's me keeping my commitment to myself, or a breath practice. The metta we were talking about earlier, that sending loving kindness to yourself, to someone you love, someone you find neutral, someone you find challenging, or someone else you love, and then groups of people around the world reading the paper or reading the news or listening, just sending, may they be happy and healthy, peaceful and at ease. It's part of the routine. I surrender my day. I kind of ask for guidance, a bit of a prayer. I take my herbal medicine potion. I'll drink a hot water with lemon and ginger and maple syrup. And because I'm not a morning person, like all my things sounds really complicated, but I'm not a morning person. So I need a long time to prepare myself to be ready to human. So I'll make a jar of like kind of lemon juice with grated ginger and maple syrup, and then it's just putting a few spoons in it. I'll try and get some light first thing in the morning, so being outdoors, and I'll often take my journal out, but living in Westport in the west of Ireland, it rains a lot, so just sitting by a window and journaling. Days that I've prepared chia pudding for breakfast, brilliant. Days I have to think about it, it's something less healthy. You're asking about what we can all do. I think I listed part of what I do. I'll pick an angel card, I'll set an intention for the day. Mine sounds really complicated, I realise this. It's what I need and what helps me, but you just need to do one thing. It might be just being grateful for whatever it might be, or just asking yourself every morning, what do I want to start my day with today? So you can have a gazillion practices that help you, but you're not going to have time for every day. But just taking that moment to tune in, like mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, what one thing would help you. And it's going to be different on different days, and there are going to be things that you need to do every day.
I mean, the thing, as you're saying that, I get kind of really cross, is because I'm so, you know, I'm constantly looking after other people, or have done most of my life, and it feels so hard to put kind of pieces in place. And I'm sure there's many people on this call who also feel the same. And it's like getting through again that resistance to kind of looking after ourselves when, you know, constantly, you know, I think nothing of, you know, looking at my son or doing something for him, or the dog, or, you know, my friends, or and it's like to kind of really look after myself, to kind of take your attention off everybody else, looking after everybody else, and then putting that attention on ourselves. I think I said at the beginning of the call, because of what's going on in the world, it just feels self-indulgent. It feels, I just think, oh my God, you're like one of those women that just, you know, I'm a bit judgy around the kind of Gwyneth Paltrow thing, and I think, oh God, I don't want to be one of those self-indulgent women who just, you know, talks about herself all the time. I find it really difficult to focus on my own needs. And so how do we...
You're not going to like the answer.
Oh God, what?
It's again connecting with that baby you, and recognizing that while your carers would have done the best they possibly could have done at that time, you didn't get enough to know how worthy you are. Like you asked about self-sabotage earlier. We self-sabotage when we don't believe that we are part of the divine. We deserve all this goodness. We deserve that time, that space, that energy, that care, whatever the practice might be. And also we live in a society that wants us to work and prove ourselves endlessly.
Yeah. I think it goes back to what you said earlier. I think is this idea of reparenting ourselves, and constantly going back to that. You know, if you were a child, what does that, you know, I don't find it hard to think, you know, second guess my son, what does he need, what does he want? Mostly just food, but yeah, okay, and again, I think that's easier for me to think of myself as a child that needs, you know, the help and support, because that's easier to do. As Fiona with her dog at there, I can see. It's a really good way of doing it. So let's open it up to everybody, Eve. This is really great. Anybody got any questions for Eve? Any sort of problems or issues that she may be able to help us with? Anybody like to ask a question?
Could I just follow on from that thing I said earlier? What came to me as you were talking, Eve, was that we've just had a new bathroom, and I've got this lovely new walk-in shower, and I found this lovely skin brush that I got years ago, and I nearly put it in a cupboard, and I've got it in the shower, and I'm going to start in skin brush. And then I'm going to shower, and then I'm going to put I've got some lovely moisturizing oils and creams, and that'll be a way of really appreciating my body.
Absolutely. And as you moisturize, like sending so much love to every millimeter of you, and so much appreciation and gratitude, and then you're going to make naturally healthier choices rather than triggering a stress response. And
and then there's my feet. I'm going to do something nice with them, and then I shall finish off with some cleansing and some lovely facial, just to spend a little bit of time on that.
I mean, that's Fiona, that's so right. I mean, we're doing the Artist Way at the moment, and one of the things that we do is doing the artist date.
I did that last night.
Which is wonderful. So the artist date is spending, you know, 2 hours a week with yourself, and with our group. So we're like, oh well, I tidied my bedroom. And I'm like, no, it's not. That is not an artist date. What are you doing? And it's like, you know, so what you're saying is spending time rubbing cream into your face, or it's just wonderful. This is what we should be doing. So it's a kind of almost a kind of session. The idea, Julia Cameron talks about this idea that, you know, our artist child needs attention. So it's like children, or with your dog, or with your cats, you know, it's spending time and giving them that attention, isn't it? Whereas if I'm too busy, what
it can't thrive with that, can it? No.
It's just unbelievable. Thank you, Fiona.
A few years ago, I banned the word busy from my vocabulary because I realized that I was using it as an excuse to put off life, you know, to put off people, to put off events and occasions. And I just felt in this constant hamster wheel of stress about busyness. And one day I just thought, excuse me, but fuck that. And sorry, this is being recorded. And I just thought, right, I have to get rid of this word from my life. And it was really interesting. For the first couple of weeks, it was just like all the time, it was kind of like trying to vomit itself out. And I just kept catching it and thinking, each time I'd have to think, okay, what would I use instead of that word? And actually, so much of it was, I'm overcommitted. And that made me look at my life in a different way. I'm overcommitted. So all the stuff that I'm saying no to now is all the stuff that would feed me and nourish me. And instead, I'm just embracing overcommitment. And I threw that word away.
Yeah.
And I very rarely use it now.
And so, I mean, I completely resonate on what you just said. So, so what happens in practical, real terms? So when you stop using and you're overcommitted, does it mean that you're committing less to things that you don't want to do? I mean, what does it look like now?
Yeah, it made me look at the busyness of my life and realize I didn't want that life. So I started stripping things out of it. And one of the things I stripped out was income at that point, because I realized that the ways I was earning a living were just so exhausting. So I had to find new ways to do that, but ways that actually fed me and brought something in. And it's that value equation. It's about the value you give and the value you get from giving. And I had to make that more important.
And you're very much at cause there. You're deciding rather than I'm too busy. It's like you're a victim to your schedule rather than I'm overcommitted. It's like there's something I can do about
that. Absolutely. It was running me, and it was a habit. But all of that changed because it brought in consciousness, and I think that's the kind of answer to so many of our problems is actually being aware and being conscious of the choices that we have in front of us and the choices. You know, so much of the time we're on autopilot, and I had to take myself off autopilot, and banning the word busy from my life and forcing myself to reflect on what that meant put me in a position to make different choices.
Can I just say that you're a very brave person, and I think there's to be conscious, to do the work that Eve is suggesting. It does take a lot of courage. It's scary to do this because it means that we're going to go out of our comfort zone. So even, you know, feeling safe in our misery, to me, we know what that feels like. But to do what we're all suggesting is going to this new way of being. It takes a bit of courage to do that.
And in an ideal world, we'd have had as babies caregivers who could have held our uncomfortableness, our too big emotions, our everything, and we would have grown up knowing that we weren't too much or we were enough, we were always lovable. Whereas we internalize when they're busy, when they're stressed, when they're whatever, as we're somehow too much. So it does take courage, but it can also be transformatively healing.
Yeah, I think so. Completely. It's completely transformative. But I think it's not underestimating that kind of big deep breath you've got to take to go to this new place, for it to go. And many of us, as you say, Caroline, it's just like, I just don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah.
Isn't it, Caroline? It's just that I don't want to live this busy silly life anymore, which I think for many of us who come to Heartlead, that's where we're at. It's about simplifying it. It's about doing things that we love and enjoy, and building a life that works for us. I mean, that's the whole point of this call, and self-care is such an important part of this process.
And it can't happen unless we give it permission. You know, unless we give ourselves permission, it can't happen, because we'll just feel bad about it. We'll feel self-indulgent, or that it's frivolous, or we don't deserve it, or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to, I'm so sorry I was late, Eve. I'm really looking forward to going back and listening to the first half hour of this. But yeah, we have to say to ourselves, it's okay. It's okay to do this. Full permission.
Yeah.
And you're saying that Susie knows the book I'm writing, the Heart Leap group. Well, one of the books. It's I was single for 23 years, and I started online dating at the start of last year, and a lot of inner child stuff came up for me, a lot of like early stuff. And one of the things that I still do now, I've been with my partner for over a year, is I buy myself flowers. I'm like, I love the Miley Cyrus song, but I started doing this before her song. But it might just be like a €3 bunch of carnations or something. But it's that commitment to myself that I can't remember what tearful crying jag led to that. I'm gonna start buying myself flowers, but I still do that as I deserve this care, I deserve this beauty to look at on my mantelpiece each day. So hello.
There's definitely a theme with the cats. So great. So yeah,
is it about pausing? Is it about stopping and pausing rather than react? And because you know, if I think back to how life was 20 years ago, people were talking this morning about how different the program Friends is. There's no mobile phones. They're all in a cafe, chatting, talking, communicating. And now, you know, people barely look up, and you've got WhatsApps and emails and everything. And that contributes to the busyness. So there's something about stopping, pausing,
deciding for yourself when you're gonna look and when you're gonna switch it off or on silent. Training other people as well.
Sorry, Eve.
No, go on.
And also it's about what Fiona, what you just said, is the connection piece as well. So the kind of, it feels like we're connecting on WhatsApp and but it's not real connection. So it's connection like, or maybe it is, I don't know, but it's like what we want is the connection with ourselves, to really, you know, as in connect with our feelings, our real feelings, not to kind of numb it down, and then also to connect with other people in a really authentic way, with honesty and, you know, and courage, because it can often take courage to say how you really are versus how pretending that you're okay. So yeah, I think it is about connection as well. Eve, to finish with, so we're just 4 minutes left. Is there, what else should we, you know, think about in terms of self-care? How shall we end this call? What piece of advice would you like to give us? What sort of thing would you say that is important for us to take away from this call? Or one question to consider, that if we did it, or is there a 2-minute exercise we can all do now? Sorry to put you on the spot.
What I'm going to do is 2 things. I'm going to ask you to all take a minute to journal around something that comes from within yourself, because I have a gazillion ideas, but you know what's right for you. So just commit to yourself to doing one thing, taking one practice. It might be something you've already been doing or something new that you're integrating, but just for yourself. And then when you come back, I'll show you a super speedy thing.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
So super speedy, it's called the triple warmer, and it helps to immediately soothe the stress response. So it's quicker than doing a whole tapping sequence in EFT, starting with the tips of the finger on the outside of the fourth finger and running it down that finger up through the little finger and fourth finger, up along the side of the arm, up to the shoulder, and then bringing it down over the heart and just noticing how you feel. How does that feel?
Yeah, good.
So doing it on the other side. And then placing the fingertips over the eyes as an alternative, bringing the fingertips down the forehead, around the ears, down the neck, across the shoulders, and again to the heart. So essentially you're giving yourself a hug, but you're also so one more time with that. You can do it through a duvet coat. You can do it, it's about intention. It's instantly soothing, and notice how it feels for you. It might not be like...
No, it is. It is soothing.
But recognize you are worthy of soothing in any situation. If you're recognizing that you soothe with less than healthy habits, get creative about choosing alternatives, experimenting, becoming a detective, and you are worthy of soothing.
I think as well, I think that's a really great idea, is almost having a menu of things that can work for you, and try to do them, and then see, so you can start to feel better, as you say. I mean, what's great about Eve's book, thank you Eve for the brilliant session today, but what's great about Eve's book is it's got all of these resources that you can try. Some don't work for me, and some of them for me really work, but it's just, and everyone's going to be different. It's having that menu that we can turn to that can help us reparent, you know, self-soothe, find ways to make ourselves feel better in kind of incremental ways, as you say, to feel safe in our own bodies, safe with our feelings, all of those things. I mean, God, at the grand old age of 55, you know, I'm still learning how to do that, but I'm getting better. Louise is asking, what's your podcast, Eve?
Oh, it's the Feel Better Every Day podcast, and it's not live yet. It's going to be launched on winter solstice. I'm going to do daily episodes for a month, like for a lunar cycle. But Susie's one of the amazing people I interviewed for it. Basically, life got very, very hectic. Bereavement, blah, 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 COVID, all sorts of things. So I'm in post-production, so I'm giving myself until December to launch it. But I've decided to do Feel Better Every Day, daily episodes for a lunar cycle.
So is that on the 21st of December?
Of December, yeah.
And what's your Substack? Just tell everybody what your Substack is.
evemc.substack.com. So it's Embodied Wellbeing.
Embodied Wellbeing. Eve, thank you so much for your wonderful wisdom today. Thank you
for having me.
For coming, and let's do one thing, everybody, one thing from this call, where we're going to reparent ourselves, self-soothe, find ways to do that. I love this. I'm going to create a menu. I'm going to send you, Julia, I'm going to send you the recording, so it's all going to be sent on email. Eve, thank you so much today. Lots of love, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.